to another episode of Wedflics. I'm Julia Braime, I'm your host. I'm the founder and editor of top UK wedding blog Brides Up North, and I'm the editor of glossy magazine Unveiled. Today on the show, we are talking with a true artist. It is the lovely Ling of Paper by Dragonfly, and she is a creator of incredible paper flowers. Let's get to it and talk all things floral. Hi Ling, and welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great, Julia, and you know what? It's really lovely to finally meet you.
I know, isn't it crazy? I mean, we've emailed and chatted in the network group, and for everybody who is finding us for the first time, this is Wedflics, and Ling is one of our Unveiled network members. She is a bridal industry professional, and she specialises in pretty paper. She was originally a wedding stationer, but she's moved into the realm of paper floristry, and she's really rather good at it. So Ling, let's hear it from you. Would you like to introduce yourself and your business to us?
Okay, so hi everyone. My name's Ling, as Julia says, and I've been working within the wedding industry for longer than I care to think, but I think it's about 15 years now. I mean, as so many people will say, it started when I got married and I made my own wedding stationery. However, at the time, I was already considering a change of career, and I wanted to make things. I was a management consultant, actually. And, you know, that was great and it paid the bills, but it didn't really satisfy me. And I really, really wanted to use my hands and make things. And I knew that I loved paper. And I started making greetings cards, and you know, that went well for a while, but you're never going to make very much money making greetings cards. So I started thinking, how can I turn this into a viable business? And then when I got married and started going to wedding fairs, I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, if I make wedding stationery, I'm not just making one card at a time, I'm making 50, 100 cards at a time. That was back in 2005. By 2007, I'd left my job, I'd moved into a studio, and it's just all snowballed from there, really.
And I mean, I have to comment on, for anyone listening on audio, you are missing a treat here, because behind Ling, we can see her studio. And it reminds me of when I was a kid at school. My textiles teacher, we did textiles, which kind of was a girls' school. It kind of shows you the nature of life and my age. But my textiles teacher had this cupboard, and it was like the fabric cupboard. And this fabric cupboard was like the holy grail of childhood. And if you were allowed in the fabric cupboard, you know, you'd done something right that day. Your studio behind me reminds me of Mrs. Bell's fabric cupboard, what is that behind you? All those beautiful rolls of colour.
Okay, so what you can see behind me on the white shelves is crepe paper. So these are, that's basically my raw materials for the flowers that I make. I think actually, Julia, you probably do need to see what's next to me. So.
Oh, wow.
This is my ribbon wall. Mind blown, eh? Mind blown.
I wish we could be doing this in person. In fact, we could be doing this in person. I should have come over to you now, because we've moved out of kind of that phase of lockdown. I should be there, but you wouldn't. I'd not be very focused on the interview. I'd just be kind of playing with the ribbons and things.
There's time.
But yeah, that is like,
you're always welcome.
Well, your studio definitely fulfills my childhood dreams. I think I need more paper in my life. So that crepe paper. First of all, let's talk about your stationery. So It all started with stationery. What's your style and ethos around your stationery products?
Okay, so I have always specialised in hand finished stationery. So rather than it just being a flat print, very early on I got into making pockets, so there were inserts that could be pulled out. I designed a specific gatefold, which was actually based, someone said, I want an invite that opens like an old-fashioned album cover. So I designed this gatefold, and then the invitation was stuck in it, or was slotted into an inside pocket. And I did quite a lot of different styles and designs like that. I do have a couple of items here I can show you.
Yes, please. Ones you made earlier, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all very Blue Peter around here.
It is.
So,
we love it.
This is an example of a pocket style invite. So this is quite unusual in that there's a tag with the names on. So this couple had a lot of eucalyptus within their wedding flowers. And then when you pull the pocket out, you can see there are 2 inserts.
Oh,
so
my
the
goodness.
front insert has been cut, so you've got the texture and the shaping around the watercolor design with the eucalyptus, and then the back piece, which is all the guest information, is printed on this lovely soft grey, which matched the colour of the groom's suit. So yeah, I like to spend time with my couples. I like to get to know them, and every single wedding that I've worked on over the years has been different. So there've been unusual colour combinations that have formed the basis for the design, or, you know, maybe I'll sit with the couple and we'll talk about what their hobbies and interests are, and we might pull something out of that. Pets quite often make an appearance.
Yeah, that's fun.
In the stationery, you know, there's quite often, you know, somewhere hidden among the foliage, you'll see the pet dog.
Oh, I love that.
Quite a lot of French bulldogs recently. So that's nice. And then this is just another example of a hand-finished one. This invitation was designed for Hannah Miraftab and Martin Kinsella, who were featured on Real Housewives of Cheshire.
Oh, yes.
So when you take the seal off and you open it up, you've got the invitation, quite traditional invitation, but along with that was an information card, and the information card's rather special. I don't know if you can see this gold foil.
Just about.
So, yeah, it doesn't. There you go. You can see it now. So festival lights were very in at the time when we did this, and because Hannah wanted to have something which referenced her Iranian heritage, and we decided to use this paisley design in lieu of the, you know, Edison light bulbs that people were using, hanging down from under the foliage, which referenced the palm house where they were getting married. So it's all about getting to know the couple and being able to pull out little elements from their stories and from their wedding stories that you could build into the stationery. Yeah,
I mean, I come on, in my line of work, I see a lot of wedding invitations, sadly not coming my way. Like, I'm not being invited to weddings. I think I'm kind of over that stage of life, which is
me too.
But, like, you know, we don't want to we'd have to have some divorces to have some more weddings, so we don't want to wish that, so we'll just kind of sit back and, you know, be done with it. But I love a good wedding. And but I see a lot of wedding invitations, you know, whether they're for the magazine or whether I'm featuring them on the blogs or just on Instagram for my clients. But those 2 invitations are like another level of artisan and very, very special. I mean, you must be so proud of your work.
Well, you know, it's
hard. I know it's hard.
To be quite honest with you, up until everything that happened last year, you know, we have to be honest, we've lived through some very, very weird times. Up until the pandemic hit last March, I think I was probably working at such an incredible rate of knots, and I had such a throughput all the time. If you can imagine working on like between 80 and 100 weddings a year, I don't do things by halves, as you can see. So I didn't always have time to sort of step back and think, you know what, actually, that's pretty good. But I think I'm happy with my body of work. I think I've produced some really nice invitations over the years.
Just
I mean, there's loads that I could show you, which
I know, and I'll just sit here being like, I love it. Everyone else have to come over. Same, but it might be a very long episode. We won't really cover much. But listen, I know exactly where you're coming from. I was exactly the same, editor of a wedding magazine, wedding shows, everything going on. And you're going 100 miles an hour and you don't have time to smell the roses. So I think both you and I this year have kind of taken stock and just made some plans around what we want to do and how we want to take our businesses forward. all the better for the people that we serve as well. I think it's good to get off the treadmill sometimes. I mean, that's a silver lining of a really tough time. I know it's been awful, but you know, I like to look for the positive. I like to look for the silver lining. So otherwise you'd go insane. So yeah, I'm going to take that as a positive. Let's talk about the other side, the newer side of your business, your paper floristry. So this is super exciting for me because, like I was saying to Ling off camera, that her paper florals are on another level. They are just, I mean, they don't look like paper.
Would you like me to show you some?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is a bouquet which I produced for a photo shoot last weekend. So in here we have the theme was kind of dusty pinks and gold. So I dyed some paper to create these blue anemones. We've got these little gold leaves, just bring that gold in. And then beyond that, I've tried to keep it quite neutral. We've got some iceberg floribunda roses there. See, I'm learning the names of all the different flowers now. We've got hydrangeas. And then I'm quite pleased, well, I'm very pleased actually with these dahlias. The dahlias, I don't think they're in season yet. This is one of the lovely things about paper flowers, is that you can have whatever you want in, you know, any season, but also you can change the colours. You can be really creative. So I've coloured the centre of these dahlias blue, so that matches the anemones. And then we've also got this lovely, really, really soft grey blue eucalyptus running through it. And quite a lot of foliage. Foliage is wonderful. I didn't realise until I started making flowers how much the leaves actually frame the flowers. So yeah, so this is what I'm doing with my paper flowers.
I mean, that is, how long would that have taken you to put that bouquet together?
Paper flowers take quite a long time to make.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, how long does that take?
However, what I can tell you is the first time I attempted to make a hydrangea, I was sitting in my friend's garden looking at her hydrangeas, and I thought, right, okay, let's look at this from a production point of view. And I counted the individual florets, and I took a flower head and I drew around the petals, and I went home and I started to make this hydrangea. And I think I had to cut about 400 florets by hand.
Wow.
Petals, actually, it's petals. I had to cut 400 petals by hand, which then made 100 individual flowers, which then all had to be stuck together in separate bunches. And in the end, I had this wonderful big hydrangea, and it was stunning, but it took me about 2 weeks to make. Fast forward to now, and the hydrangeas that I've created in this bouquet, I made them in a day. Wow. So I've picked up speed. There aren't quite as many florets in that as there was in the enormous original hydrangea head that I made. But practice, it's all about practice. And also the dahlias, you know, the first time I made a dahlia, I mean, for a start, you've just got to get used to how to position the petals, how to get that natural look. And it took a while. It really does take a while just to kind of suss it out. But again, I was able to make 3 dahlias in a day, and I was absolutely delighted. Didn't think it was going to happen.
you have sped up the process, but I mean, that does takes time, but it is, you know, do you find it a relaxing process? Do you enjoy you must enjoy making the flowers?
Oh, I love it. I get into the flow when I'm doing it, you know. It's just, and there is something quite mindful, you know, you've got to be present when you're doing it. You can't really let your mind wander. So it's a lovely thing to do. Really is. I would recommend lots of people take up making paper flowers as a hobby, because it's wonderful.
Well, that should be your next thing. Courses, Ling, courses for, you know. But like, I'm just astounded. So that foliage, like is it ivy, like the 2-tone ivy I could see in that bouquet? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you making that? Are you painting it, or?
Okay, I think I've got a couple of random leaves. Just give me a sec.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a leaf.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So what you do is you take a square of crepe and you cut it. Let's pretend this is a square of crepe. You cut it on the diagonal and then you flip the two pieces so you can glue them together with the grain going that way. Imagine crepe.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, if you imagine crepe, it does have a grain and it stretches, which is great because it means it also you can shape it. You can do all sorts of different things with it. You can pull it, you can dye it, you can get it wet. And it takes a lot to make this stuff tear. It's really quite strong stuff. So I would then glue the two pieces together with some wire in between. And then once that's dry, I'll shape the leaf. And then in this case, I've painted a little bit of bleach on the edges to take the colour out.
Okay, so you're not painting, I get it.
Yeah,
so you're not painting the green on, you're taking the,
I'm taking the colour out. Now, I could do it the other way round, but I quite like the random effect that I get from using like bleaches and inks. Rather than paint. I know there are florists paper florists out there who'll colour their inks using acrylic, but I quite like to have that sort of random effect. It just feels a little bit more natural to me. And then the bleach will actually stretch, or just getting it wet will stretch the crepe and give it that texture, but then you can pull it and ruffle it, and because it's wired, I can make the leaf shape and twist and
this is seriously impressive stuff. It's I mean, you are essentially a florist, but it's much harder. And that's not to take anything. That's not to take anything away from our florist friends. But I mean, this is like another level of art, isn't it? It's incredible.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, I started doing this because I'd wanted to get into making flowers for the longest time, and I'd never had time because I was so busy with work and family, and then of course lockdown happened and I had nothing but time. I had all the crepe paper I bought and all the resources just sat there ready, and I just had to sit down and make myself do it. So I made all of these flowers, and then I needed to create a bouquet, and I'm thinking, how do I do that? I don't know how to put the flowers together. So I have got an incredible resource library of things like this, and I've made a wonderful new friend during lockdown who is a wedding florist. I've built a website for her because I've also taught myself how to do that. We've all learned so many new skills during lockdown. Anyway, so she has given me one-to-one tuition in how to put a wedding bouquet together, because it's not as easy as
it's all about the turning, right? Keep turning.
And who knew that? I didn't know that until last week.
I know, it's crazy. But wow, I mean, so a bridal couple coming to you, that wedding couple, how can do they just come and you have a chat about the sort of paper flowers they would like? Does it generally kind of happen with the stationery orders? How does it work? Or is it all just brand new and you're seeing how it goes? How is it going to work?
Okay, so I mean, it is all a bit brand new. But the way I work with my wedding stationery is I always like to meet my couples, and we'll sit down, we'll have a cup of tea, and I'll ask them lots of questions. We'll get to know each other. I mean, we usually spend sort of an hour and a half in that initial meeting. I have made a couple of floral arrangements to order, and the process has really followed the same kind of lines. Someone might phone me and say, I'm really interested in having an arrangement created for a paper anniversary, and they might have some ideas. But I always find that the easiest way to sort these things out is to get together, for them to have a look at the colours that I've got available, or tell me what colours they want to bring into it, and I can then create sketches while they're there so that we can work out exactly what we're going to do. So it probably works in a very similar way to someone designing a cake for a wedding, or even the florist doing a sketch of the bouquet at an initial meeting.
What I like about it is you could have the paper flowers in your bouquet, you could have them on your cake, you could draw them through the stationery, buttonholes, bridesmaid gifts for the mother of the bride. I mean, you could go to town with a paper flower wedding, couldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
4 years later, Ling's ready.
Sorry, when were you getting married? Yeah, 2023. I might be able to do that. No, I think number one, you get quicker at doing these kind of things, but also certainly now that we're over this last big lockdown, and let's hope that we don't go back into lockdown. Now that my children are back at school and I'm back in the studio, my aim is to build up stocks.
Yes.
There's kind of it's getting a balance right, because I don't anticipate that I will have a lot of people who want exactly the same thing, but at the same time, I know from experience, a few years ago we went through a period where it's not like everyone had navy and blush, but there was a lot of navy and blush. So, you know, there's a certain element of being able to predict it. White flowers and lots of foliage. Eucalyptus has a moment. Blush roses have a moment. So I think if you're able to keep on top of trends like that, then I certainly would be building up stocks so that I'm able to pull together quite quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I would say there were some really key flowers that you could always stock. So like your peonies, dahlias now becoming really popular, like the cafe au lait dahlias and wedding florals, anemones, ranunculus. What else? Hydrangeas,
definitely. And the funny thing is with these flowers, what I'm coming to realize is that you don't need a huge amount of them. So if you have, say, 3 or 4 big blooms, a little bit of filler, and then the foliage, it really, really does make such a huge difference. And I think if you have too many flowers that get squashed together, if you have a few really stunning flowers, give them a bit of room to breathe and fill it up with some really lovely foliage. Another thing to be aware of, and another reason why I think foliage is really good for these bridal flowers, is you don't want to risk, and I'm sure it's the same with actual flowers, you don't want to risk getting any stains on the bride's dress.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So one thing I really love about your paper arrangements, and I'm kind of watching this thinking I want a paper arrangement just in my house, a dahlia one specifically. But
noted.
What I love, yeah, like hint. What I love is how you can, like, you keep them in inverted commas forever, because obviously there is a shelf life. But how long would a paper bouquet last if you kept it nicely, maybe like under a cloche or however you could store it?
Okay, so they're pretty durable. The advice that I would give is keep them out of direct sunlight. Don't get them wet. They will, as with anything that's left untended, it's going to gather a bit of dust over time, but all you need to do is get a hairdryer on a cool setting and blow that over it, and that'll quickly clear the dust. For darker colours, certainly I would probably use a UV protective spray on them, which is going to help to keep the colour fastness. But a bouquet like this, I don't really think you're going to have any major problems with it fading, because the colours are pretty light anyway.
Yeah.
I have got flowers which have been in my studio for a good 18 months and also at home. Now, they're not in direct sunlight, but I haven't noticed any change of colour. So I would say they're really pretty durable. And I kept my bridal bouquet. I got married in 2004, so it's going to be our 17th anniversary this year. I kept that beautiful bouquet and I've still got it, and it is just a big dusty pile of, you know.
Yeah.
If I touch it, it's just going to fall to pieces. I can't see any of the colours, none of it's left. I tried to get rid of it recently and my daughter said, no, Mummy, you can't, you mustn't throw it away. So it's still there. But if I'd had something like this, I'd still have my sunflowers from my wedding with all the germ and the thistles, because they mix really well with real flowers as well. So things like thistles, which will dry well, but which are probably very fiddly to make out of paper. You can mix your flowers with some real, the blue sea holly thistles. That would look really nice. And would last.
I was going to ask about that, because something I quite often recommend is using silk as fillers, you know, like in the bigger arrangements and things like that. Is this, I mean, but then I wasn't going to ask it, because I thought, well, that kind of takes away from the art nature of the paper flowers in a way, because, you know, just bring the silk flower in, but then I would, special.
Yeah, I would be more inclined to mix the paper flowers with real flowers, and there's quite a specific reason that I say that, and this is a very personal thing to me, but you know, I think it does apply to all of us. You know, one of the reasons that I enjoy making these flowers so much is because I know it's something that I can do that's really, it doesn't leave a big footprint. You know, it's important to me that these things are sustainable. And, you know, there are other aspects to using paper flowers rather than real flowers, which I think are worth mentioning. You know, they're not being flown in from Kenya or Holland or wherever they've been hothoused. You know, they're going to last. You don't have to throw them away. So you're investing good money in beautiful flowers for your wedding. Why not make some of those flowers that you will keep, even if you only have a few stems on each table, and afterwards you can put them together. You've got a beautiful arrangement for your house. The way I make these flowers, I'm very conscious of the materials that I use. So I'm using paper. I'm using waxed tape. So it's made of paper, it's got wax on it, and the wax actually works as an adhesive. It's something florists use, but I use it a lot in these paper flowers as well. I use wire, and I use a little tiny bit of glue. And you know, believe me, I'm constantly researching different types of glues and adhesives, because I worry about glue, you know. I worry about microplastics, and I don't want to be part of the problem.
Yes. So, because it's interesting, because you kind of think, oh, paper's not that sustainable, but it is when compared to the alternative. That's the thing, isn't it? So whether it's recycled, or, you know, whether you're not cutting flowers, I think it's kind of finding the best possible route. And I love that, you know, everything you create is with that thought of the environment in mind. And actually, you know, years and years down the line, if those flowers are then recycled, then the impact on the environment is going to be tiny.
You know, when you mention the artificial flowers, the silk flowers, for example, well, we like to call them silk flowers, but a lot of those flowers are actually made out of polyester, and the stems tend to be coated in plastic. A lot of them, let's be honest, have probably been shipped in from the other side of the world, and I don't really see there being a great benefit to the environment in using artificial flowers. And I say that I hold my hands up as someone who has used a lot of artificial flowers over the years.
If I'm honest, really.
I've made so many seating plans, and you know, covered them in artificial flowers. But it comes from a very personal place. I feel so much more comfortable doing this.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It's because it's interesting. My silk flower thing didn't really come from an environmental standpoint. It more came from a budgeting standpoint, so a way to save money. But you know, I think we've all been educated. Like, we've all known it all along, but more so now. Like, we're all really conscious of what we can do to make things better for future generations, particularly as you have your own children. And you learn more about it. So yeah, I think this is a really, really positive side to an already pretty darn positive way of putting your wedding flowers together. So I absolutely love it. I'm really intrigued to know, what was the first flower you ever made when you were messing about with it?
It's around somewhere. It was a friend of mine had told me that I can see it, I'll go and get it. A friend of mine had announced her engagement, and she's also in the wedding industry. She came to see me and she said, oh, I want giant paper flowers at my wedding. I'm like, oh, are they a thing? I mean, we're going back to 2018, and I just hadn't come across this. She said, oh, Ling, Instagram is awash with giant paper flowers, just have a look. So I started looking, and Yes, wow, amazing. You should see some of the stuff that's coming out of Russia and China at the moment. It is just absolutely astounding. And I started talking to people, and I came across the crepe paper flowers and tissue paper flowers.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, I've got to try this, got to try this, got to try this. And I got a couple of books, and to be honest, I read the instructions in the books. It didn't make any sense to me. So I thought one day I was outside my kids' school, and there's this beautiful, beautiful tree full of blossom. I think it's an apple tree. And I stole a flower off it, and I walked back down to my studio, and I thought, right, I'm going to try and make that flower. So this is what I made.
Oh, wow. That's really good for a first. So this is,
well, I mean, I had the flower, and I took the petals and I drew around them, and I can't believe I did this. The thread in here is just cotton, and I painted it with PVA glue so it would go nice and stiff, and had these tiny little seed beads knocking around from I don't know where. Sorry, you can't see the flower, can you?
No, yeah, that's better.
That's better. I had these tiny, tiny little beads, and I thought, oh, they'd make good pollen. I mean, I would never do something quite as fiddly as this again, but that was the first flower that I made.
I mean, like for a first, well, no, okay, not even for a first flower. I mean, that's incredible. Just standalone, beautiful. But I mean, strange choice. I mean, I feel like you picked a really hard flower to start with.
No, it's so simple. It's just a little blossom flower.
It looks hard to me, like really fiddly, ridiculous. I thought you were going to say, "Oh yeah, I did like like the daisy." Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know what's hard or not.
The thing is, think about it. How many petals has the daisy got?
I meant more of like a 5 petals, but, like one of those. I know,
but I mean, that is just 5 petals. I just added the extra petals because I thought it looked better. This in consultations, I'm like up and
I love it.
Back like a jack in the box. I made this the other day. This is a colt's foot.
It's just like off the scale.
So
they look really real.
I just I picked up some book. I think it was the Ladybird book of what to look for in spring. I mean, it's amazing where your inspiration comes from, isn't it? And it had this little paragraph talking about coltsfoots, and I thought they used to grow outside my home in Yorkshire on the verge, and I haven't seen them for years now. I don't know whether it's because of where I live now. Maybe they don't grow on the coast. And I thought, right, I'm going to have to sit and make myself one. And I sat and did that. It didn't take me too long to do because I've got the techniques under my belt now. But when I sort of think back to making this, not having a clue, spending hours on putting this little thing together, and, being able now to look at a flower. And I do this all the time. I'm walking around looking at all the wildflowers thinking, so I would use this technique on that part. And then I do a sentence like this. So, yeah.
I mean, when you made that first one, did you think, yeah, I'm pretty good at this?
No, I think I made that first one and thought, right, stop playing around. You've got stationery to make.
So where was the transition? So was it literally just being locked down and you thought, okay, like I enjoyed making that first one, I'm now going to give it a go? Because I remember sort of being in touch with you around sort of November, Christmas time, when I think you were kind of just sort of you'd really gotten into the swing of things by then. And you were saying, oh, look at these.
Well, okay, so I think I discovered them sometime sort of late 2018, started researching it, started reading books, made that one early 2019, fiddled around a little bit, didn't really make very much, didn't really have time. And then one of my paper flower heroes, absolute hero, a woman called Tiffany Turner, who's written a book called The Fine Art of Paper Flowers, and her work is absolutely out of this world. I happened to, I don't even know how I stumbled across it, but I found out that she was coming to the UK to run a course. So I booked myself on it, and I went up to Edinburgh in September 2019, and it was only a 6-hour course, but oh my word, just I can't even describe the work that she makes. And to be in a room and watch her make these flowers. And as I was driving up to Edinburgh, so I'm on the Wirral. I was driving up to Edinburgh, I was thinking, oh, I wonder whether I'll be the person that's travelled the furthest. And I got there, and there was a woman who'd flown over from Russia. There was a woman who'd flown over from Copenhagen, and there were at least 2 people who'd flown up from the south coast. And this was for a 6-hour course. I mean, you know, this woman really knows stuff. It was absolutely incredible. So I made that flower, made 1 flower that day, still got it, still looks as good as it did that day. And then I came back and I got back into wedding stationery, and it literally wasn't until lockdown I thought, I've got to do this, I've got to make the time. Actually, I've been thinking I've got to make the time before lockdown, obviously. And I had a little attempt in the February, but I just, you know, when you're up to your neck in it with weddings,
because you have to prioritise your clients, don't you?
Of course you do. Of course you do. And then when you've got a family as well.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I would, you know, lockdown, there have been trials and tribulations, but like you, I like to try and find the silver lining in everything that I do. And if it wasn't for lockdown, I would not have had the time to sit and dedicate to doing this. And I've loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
And when I think how far I've come from sitting in my living room, you know, when we were only allowed out for an hour a day, every day, sitting in my living room, trying to work out how to make all of these things. And then I think the first thing that I made, I thought, actually, I think you're going to be okay, was some form of, it was an open form peony of some type. I thought, you know what, that looks all right. That does.
Yeah, I love that. I love it when things sort of fall, when a plan comes together and you think, yeah, okay, I think there's some magic here and we can run with this.
Yeah.
Well, wow. I mean, you've kind of created a whole new business, really, or another part of your business. And I think it's really, really exciting. Super like on trend, super of the moment. I can't wait to work with you for like the magazine or whatever we cook up together, because I think we're going to have some fun.
I think so.
Yeah, I can't wait. But it'll have to be confidential until that new issue comes out. What is your favourite flower to make?
I really like making poppies.
Oh, yeah.
I love making poppies. I've made a lot of poppies. If you go back through my Instagram feed, at one point last autumn, I think I was on to my 4th week of making nothing but poppies. I'm like, is this becoming an addiction?
Poppies are gorgeous.
Poppies, all different colours and different centres. I love making poppies. They're so satisfying.
Yeah, you should have a bit of a poppy day thing going on there as well, actually.
You see, there's so much potential, isn't there? There's flowers everywhere. There's flowers attached and associated with all sorts of different things. And then we haven't even touched on the language of flowers and how you can weave meaning into what you do.
Oh, I love that. I love kind of, obviously I'm a storyteller in what I do, and I love like layers of meaning and kind of emotive stuff weaved in where you can in a wedding. I think that's why it's so special. And that's as well why I really like the idea of being able to keep the bouquet, the paper. I mean, okay, I wouldn't be up for it if the paper bouquet looked rubbish. And, you know, a while ago we had that sort of trend for like the button bouquets.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't a fan of those, I must admit. Some of them were done really nicely, but it became a little bit mainstream and a little bit naff, if I'm able to say that. But with what you're doing, it just looks so beautiful, and it's almost it's like another level of beauty that I think, you know, you'd be really proud to carry that. You know, you're doing your bit, you can display it in your home afterwards. It's win-win for me.
I think there's something almost a little bit ethereal about the way the paper emulates the petals. You know, it is actually capturing somehow, by some crazy magic, this paper does capture the essence of the flower. And I think what's so nice about it.
It's gorgeous. So, Ling, how can couples get in touch with you, whether it's for stationery or for paper floristry?
Okay, so you can contact me via my website, which is paperbydragonfly.com. You can contact me on Instagram or give me a call. I'm not always in the studio, but I do always check my answer phone messages. So Perfect. There's lots of ways of getting in touch with me.
Great. And to finish, what's been your proudest career moment, whether in stationery or flowers, or you can pick a couple? Hard question to end.
Oh gosh, that is such a hard question to answer. And you know, over the years, I've worked with some really, really interesting couples, some fascinating people, and I've worked with famous people and sports people. Oh gosh, it's going to be really hard to pull that one out. But I think maybe one of the very first weddings that I ever did, which was for a dear friend of mine, for a couple who were dear friends of mine, and I was still working at the time. I was still a full-time management consultant, and I remember that they announced their engagement on New Year's Eve. We were all at a party, and I took a deep breath. And I've been doing all sorts of, self-development work, and I was all into this. Right? You've got to talk to people. You've got to tell people what you want to do. And I said to her, I was probably a little bit drunk at the time. Yeah. I said, Liz, you're getting married and I'm going to change career this year. So please, can I design your wedding stationery? And she took a chance on me and she said yes. And maybe that is one of my proudest moments. I actually dared to seize the opportunity and I did it. And everything that I've done has flowed from that.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love it. And you know what, if any sort of business people are watching and they're in creative, or they're not in a creative career and they want to step into the one, I'm sure that'll provide them not only with wedding inspiration, but with a little bit of career guidance as well. You just got to go through it. If not now, then when? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Not now, then when.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Ling, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I could chat to you for hours, and I'm definitely going to come to your studio next time for sure. So thank you so much for being my guest.
It's been lovely to meet you. Thanks, Julia. Bye-bye.